your consciousness, which is an attribute of the soul, can go in many directions. Now, I think this is what they were doing in the Kivas down in Pueblo Bonito. They would have the little peyote ceremony or ayahuasca or the San Pedro cactus, whatever it is that helps them alter their states. And they go into out-of-body experiences, which we have the capability of doing, but we are not taught that. Well, that's what's coming. Because if you can make contact, you don't have to die to meet God. Then you can actually walk out and have an entity who needs to fulfill their karmic debt walk in. Now, that's news to a lot of people. They never heard of that before, but that's old news for people like me who've been around metaphysics and know about the Akashic records. Are you familiar with the Akashic records, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. And I do want to step on one thing. The person I had on my show last night was a college professor. And when he was 10 years old, he had an out-of-body experience, time travel. And that would, at a certain age, he would be a professor. And then at a certain age, he would do a one-man show about time travel and other stuff. And guess what happened? It all came at the same time that his dream was when he was 10 years old.
Wow.
And, he clearly, from, talking to him, he had an out-of-body experience. We all do. We just don't realize it. And that's right. The thing.
We might not remember it. It could be vivid dreaming as well. But I was reading a book by Robert Monroe, a contractor who had developed and perfected the art of out-of-body experiences. And it was amazing what you could do. And the problem with metaphysics, when you find out what we're missing, you become very sad because we're wasting our lives. We really are. We could be doing so much more with our abilities. And for example, you take the historic Jesus. Everything he did shows what we can do. And it also proved what metaphysics says about atoms and molecules, that minute as they are, they carry their burden of consciousness. Now, scientists can't accept this, but if you understand that atoms and molecules, if you could connect with them and talk to them, you could float people right out of a building just like aliens do. And I would say this to every human on Earth. It doesn't matter if you're in a jail cell or a house. When that moment comes, if you have met the qualifications to be part of the next human evolution, you will be taken right through your building. Don't worry a bit about that. Doesn't matter if you have a life term. It depends on what you're doing now. Your focus determines your destiny. So if you turn a leaf and you start thinking positive things are going to happen. The universe rewards that. And it also punishes you. If you're on the wrong path, and believe me, I would have wound up in jail had I not discovered metaphysics. And I realized when you steal, you get stolen from, and sometimes it happens quickly. So why not use the fact that with the existence of this Akashic records, and I want to read what that means. It means the Akashic records are a compendium of all human events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent, ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future. They are believed by theosophists to be encoded in a non-physical plane of existence known as the etheric plane. Now, it's also been reported that many people have had near-death experiences, Gary. They report that there is a spirit guide next to them that says these epic words. What have you done with your life that you can show me? And instantly, their whole life is played back, including their thoughts, their intentions, and everything. So, we're not going to escape anything, and I believe that the future of mankind will have access to this, and there won't be any more crime, because when you know you can't get away with it, why would you commit it?
Well, you know what? I hate to say it. I mean, if we go into the next plane, they shouldn't have to be any crime. That is the problem, and that's where we're made to make the decision, the right decision, the wrong decision, and your whole life depends on what decisions you make. If you treat everybody how you want to be treated, then you're not going to have a problem. If you don't have any respect for yourself, then you're not going to treat anybody else right. You're not going to have any moral values. You probably wouldn't even care if you robbed a bank. I mean, it all depends on what your mindset is and how you're brought up.
Right. And, the Dalai Lama was in San Diego, and that's what he said. It's all about the education. It starts with our education. Now, as good as my education was, Gary, it was flawed, and we are producing, as we speak, flawed humans. And that shows up with disgruntled kids who are killing other kids in high school. They don't have the background to know that we are all spiritually based. We are here for that particular reason, and that every face belongs to God. Now, I learned that a long time ago. I mean, my father used to bring home his hand-picked police partner, which was a 6'4" African-American who was as intimidating but as friendly as my dad. And he started a Boy Scout troop right in the heart of Logan Heights. And his 3 white boys were the only boys in there. And he proved what Martin Luther King was saying, that you judge somebody by the content of their character and not their physical appearance. Well, this is what's going to happen when we have contact with aliens. We're going to have to understand that they are spiritual entities just like we are, that we need to respect them, that they are benefactors, that they have seeded our planet and have gone to extraordinary lengths to save mankind from this overdue shift of our poles, but time is running out. We've got volcanoes exploding all over the place. Earth needs to roll over badly. So mankind needs to sit upright and take stock of the fact that we're not alone, and that there's a reason for that, and that we're heading for a wonderful future of interplanetary contact and trade, and it's going to replace this invention that we call the monetary system, which has produced all this greed and grief around the world.
Well, we have destroyed our planet. We really have. Over greed. I mean, look at what they do, right? They pump out oil out of the ground, right? Then the scientists come back with the idea, well, you know what? We'll pump water back in to displace the oil we pumped out. Well, you know that?
That's fracking, yep.
Yeah, well, that doesn't work. That's like, okay, you run a car, right? You have to have oil in it to keep everything from seizing, right? You put water in it, everything seizes up. So now they're sitting there pumping all this oil, the blood from the earth out of the ground, till it's almost virtually dry. And then they figure, okay, well, now we're going to pump water back in. Well, 10 years later, all of a sudden the ground starts, caving in, great big cracks develop, sinkholes start developing. The illogical thing, they don't care. It's called make the buck, and they don't realize they're destroying our planet. Just like what's going on in Antarctica, the people who are so naive don't realize, like a big shipping company is ecstatic right now because next summer or next spring they can start, instead of having to go around the Cape, they can go right through Antarctica now with their big container ships. Save a lot of days of, being out on sea and a lot of money. And that's got me really scared because, we are not, put it this way, if the Earth tilt doesn't get us, if we don't have all of a sudden these 400 mile, 500 mile winds all of a sudden come through and cleanse the Earth, we have to look at, well, we're going to be really screwed screwed because the sea levels are going to start rising. When that starts happening more than what it is, I mean, besides losing, like if you own property in Florida, you're going to lose that real fast. New York is going to be underwater. Not just that. A lot of people don't realize in Russia in the early 1900s, they had a freezing winter. It was so bad. People were tearing their doors off, tearing their whatever piece of wood flooring, to keep their house warm by burning it. And a lot of people froze to death in their houses because they couldn't get it warm enough to survive. Now, what's going to happen with all this water, going into the ocean? It's going to drop the flow. It goes on the Atlantic Ocean, which basically keeps the Europe from going in a deep freeze. So when that starts dropping even a degree or more, all of a sudden you might find here in a couple years or even less, Europe, UK, all that stuff is going to be in a deep freeze where people won't even be able to live there.
Yeah, and just look at the changing weather patterns. The heat in San Diego, I haven't felt before, but when you read the newspaper, it's all across the world. People are dying from the heat. It's just unimaginable. And then in some parts, they're getting flooded. It's like
crazy.
The whole world
it's crazy.
Is in an upheaval. Right, and then look what's going on in poor Florida. Not only are they being approached by Florence, this could be a killer hurricane, but they are suffering from the effects of that algae bloom that has literally stunk up miles and miles of prime shoreline for tourism in Florida, and they are losing millions because of countless dead fish that are stinking up the place. This might be a result of the warm weather patterns that have got this algae bloom, the toxic one, flowing in. So hopefully maybe the hurricane will somehow stamp that out. But I have friends down in Florida, and I'm very concerned for them as well as Carolina. So,
well, this is the beginning of the hurricane season, and what they're saying is it could even keep getting worse. I mean, there's 3 of them going on right now. Bang, bang, bang. Now, what happens another couple of weeks from now when another one comes? I mean, when's the last time you heard of 150 mile an hour winds? On a hurricane coming into land base. I mean, it's getting worse each time. So, they actually increase the category, for hurricanes because of what's going on. So that's got me scared. I have
F5.
I have a friend, Michael Jones, that lives in North Carolina, and he said that, right now, actually when I read his posting yesterday, he said it was a massive, heavy rain coming down, and that was before the wind.
Well, and, I was reading not too long ago about this giant iceberg that calved off the Larsen B ice shelf, and this giant state-sized iceberg, which is floating off into shipping lanes. I thought to myself, would the weight of this iceberg be the straw that broke the camel's back and caused the Earth's crustal displacement that aliens have been working so hard to avoid? I mean, aliens have been flying into volcanoes. They've been spotted flying into the sun. They have been working overtime to help stall this planetary catastrophe, and they have been linked to some of the Japanese earthquakes and other events, and who knows if they may be triggering some of these smaller quakes to help postpone the gigantic shift. I'm certain that one way or the other, that extraterrestrials don't want us to die. They want us to believe. They want us to get on board with who they are and what their motivations are for us. We are of divine origin. Each and every one of us has a divine spark in us, which may reside in the pineal gland in our brain. It's been said that when people die, they lose some weight. Maybe that's our soul taking off. Now, I'm sure, since my dad proved that he's alive after decades, that we don't die, and that everything is so perfectly organized. It is a beautiful thing if only we were on track with that. Now, for instance, in my book, Gary, I wrote that I've had episodes of telepathy. It was accidental, but I wasn't taught that in school, and it really happened. Now, how come I wasn't taught these things? I can't blame my parents. I can't blame the teachers because they didn't know about it. This is something that is ongoing, and, it's going to take time to get it done because everything that is worth it takes a little time to get done.
Well, I think we all have that capability. Again, it's just, how can I say it? I think some people are more adept to it because they can focus onto it where other people don't, because how can I say it? If you don't believe in something, then it doesn't exist to you. So then it can't happen. But I mean, there's so many things honestly, Mike, that happens that you can't describe it. I mean, there's no words for it. I mean, things